you've been reading leadership or management articles, or you've attended any of these kind of leadership, motivation, management strategy meetings or trainings, you know that it has been a real trend in the past several years that every organization, whether it's business, whether it's school, whether it's college, or even church, because those days we never had that. But in the last 10 years, everybody must come out with this thing called a mission statement. Do you have a mission statement for yourself? Or do you have a mission statement for your company? Now let's look at a couple of mission statements. Starbucks, some of us hang out in Starbucks all the time, right? Their mission is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, definitely, caffeinated human spirit. One person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. McDonald's has a mission statement to be our customers' favorite place and way to eat and drink. Has McDonald's become your favorite place and way to eat and drink? Then we have some churches who also have mission statements. Right? And here I like this fact that the church actually painted it or put it up, printed it and put it up on their wall. And it's very, very nice. Then there are some simple mission statements. Okay, some simple mission statements like just smile. I think that is a very good mission statement to put in your office or in your house, just smile. And then there are some that, as far as I can tell, the mission statement is to look as busy as possible, regardless of how much you actually accomplish. And there's another mission statement, make it to the weekend. And we reached the weekend, so we've achieved our mission. And I like this, chill, chill. You should have that in your Utama Beacon. Chill, relax, it's a Sabbath day, relax. Today, we are going to go into episode 2, which is the mission of Jesus. Last week, we've already done quite a lot about his birth. Okay? We talked about his genealogy, we talked about his birth to a virgin young lady, we talked about him being the descendant of Abraham, descendant of David, and then, of course, descendant of Adam, and finally, the Son of God. We spoke about him being a universal savior as well as a Messiah to the Jews. We spoke about the fact that he was a Nazarene, as prophesied, and his name was to be called Emmanuel, God with us. And during his birth, there was this big party going on with shepherds and angels, and then the wise men came, and then after there was Herod throwing his tantrum, and there was children massacre. There was a big hoo-ha during Jesus' birth. After that, there's really not much spoken about him when he was growing up, except for the fact that he grew in wisdom and stature. That's about it. And then he spent some time in the temple. Then the story picks up again at about age 30 years old. Why 30 years old? Because for the Jewish guys, 30 years old is about the time when you actually go into ministry, priesthood ministry. And we talk about his mission. If I were to ask you to type for me, what do you think was Jesus' mission on earth? Can you just share some answers with me? What was Jesus' mission on this earth? Okay, good. To save us. To reveal God. Yes. To redeem our sin. Yes. To serve. Yes. To show how to live a life with God. Yes. Did you know that Jesus also had a mission statement? And when did he actually make that statement? He was baptized by John. After that, he was brought to the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He came back very, very much empowered. And he came back to Nazareth, because Nazareth was the place where he lived his life, Nazareth. And when he was living in Nazareth, you remember Joseph and Mary, they are Jews. So they will go to the synagogue every Sabbath birthday. And Jesus was very used to doing that. So one Sabbath, he went into the synagogue and they passed him the Isaiah scroll, the book of Isaiah. Remember, the book of Isaiah is the most quoted in the New Testament. This book of Isaiah is the Old Testament book. Right? And he opened it up and he read this. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the broken heart, to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. That was his mission statement. He rolled up the scroll, sat down, and the next statement that he made was the punchline. He said, "Today, this prophecy is fulfilled as you hear it." Meaning that this prophetic statement that was made by Isaiah 600 years ago was fulfilled today, and Jesus was proclaiming it to the people publicly. That was his mission statement. And then he sat down. Those who heard these words, most of them, they are normal people. Most of them struggle under heavy burdens. And what were the heavy burdens? The heavy burdens was what they had been told that was true religion or holiness. The 613 laws of the Torah. You see, that time, the religious leaders, all they cared about was the law. Because post-exile, they concentrated a lot on the law. Leaders propagated it so much that they forgot to cater to the needs of the people. So there were poor people, there were suffering people, there were sick people at that point in time. But the leaders didn't even give a wink of these people. So when these people, normal people, heard Jesus make that statement, something happened in them, and there was a little bit of hope in them. Because Jesus proclaimed that he was here to preach the gospel, to preach the good news to the poor, to heal the brokenhearted, to set liberty to the captives. Of course, there were some people there who were not happy with him. So at the end of the day, they wanted to throw him off the cliff. So if you've ever made a mission statement and your family disagree with you, your husband disagree with you, your wife disagree with you, don't worry. Okay. Jesus also had that problem. If you have a mission statement to start a business, to go for your PhD, to heal the world, to stand for elections, doesn't matter. Whatever opposition you face, Jesus faced the same opposition. So go ahead and strive for your dream. And from that day onwards, Jesus went about and he started to do his work. All in all, Jesus did many miracles. Anybody can tell me how many miracles that Jesus performed? Actually, it's 40 miracles. A lot of miracles for somebody who only spent 3 years in the ministry on this earth. He healed the blind. He healed the lame, could walk again. The woman that had problems, he healed. He calmed the storm, even raising the dead. Who can tell me what was Jesus' first miracle? You are right. Turning water into wine. The best wine they had ever served in a whole wedding. If you read all the 4 Gospels, the most miracles come from the book of Luke. Perhaps Luke, being a physician or being a very great researcher, he writes a lot of miracles. The second most miracles are written by Mark, the third by Matthew, and of course, finally, John. In fact, he healed more than he preached. There's only basically one major sermon, that is the Sermon on the Mount. His miracles of healing were basically fulfilling his mission statement. And his healing and his miracles were in fact his sermons, not so much his words. So today, we want to talk about, there are over 40 miracles. We will only be able to talk about 3 miracles. And we will want to draw lessons from these 3 miracles. So we will start off with the first miracle that he did. And I have some team members to help me to do that. So we have Tim Val. Tim Val is going to help us to tell the story about Jesus calming the storm.
As evening came, he told the disciples, "Let's cross over to the other side of the lake." So they left the crowd and they took him along since he was already in a boat. And there were other boats as well following them. Jesus settled down for a nap as they started their journey across the lake. Then suddenly a fierce windstorm arose and the waves were breaking over the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. So they were suddenly caught in a very huge and fierce storm, and the boat seems like it was going to sink. So the disciples were very terrified, But Jesus himself was actually sleeping soundly in the stern. And so the disciples, because of the terrifying situation, they quickly go and wake up their teacher. So when Jesus woke up, Jesus rebuked the wind and waves, and then only he rebuked the disciples for their little faith. Lastly, the disciples were terrified and amazed at what Jesus did. And they said, "Who is this man? Even the winds and waves obey him." So from this story, I believe that his mission here was to reveal that he is God, he is in control. Even the winds and waves will listen to Jesus. And we have nothing to fear if we are with Lord, our Master, Jesus.
Now, how many of us have ever heard this story before? If you've ever been to Israel, you know that the Sea of Galilee is not a sea. What is the Sea of Galilee? What is it actually?
Lake.
Yes, it is a lake. It's a very, very huge lake. It's actually a very beautiful place. And because Jesus was trying to avoid Jerusalem and the Pharisees, he will be doing his ministry around the Sea of Galilee. Capernaum is one of them, where Peter had his house. So one day, he wanted to cross over from one end to the other of the lake. It's actually a very huge lake. That's why they call it the sea. And these disciples, some of them were fishermen, right? And they were very used to this sea. They knew everything about this sea already. So nicely, they got on the boat, as not only one boat as well. There's a couple of boats, and they started on their journey to cross to the other side. And here he was so tired already because why? Since he made that mission statement, Jesus never stopped working. In fact, he would start working and healing, and everybody was after him. Crowds were following him. So can you imagine? He was feeling a bit tired, so he went to sleep, and then the storm came. These fishermen, they were very skilled fishermen, right? What made them so scared? The explanation by Matthew, Mark, and Luke was that the storm was so fearful. Would fishermen be fearful of storms? He would be fearful. See, Adamson said it's an unnatural storm. So who brought the storm? Was it God or Satan? Was it a test by God? While he was sleeping, he just wanted to test his disciples. Remember, the disciples were new disciples, had just been called into ministry, just like some of us, newly baptized, or some of you just started to come in to learn about God, to learn about Jesus. So here it is, he wants to reveal even more to them. The fishermen were helpless. The water was coming into the boat. All the boats were rocking up and down. And here was Jesus sleeping away. They came to him, they say, "We are going to die." Have you ever felt like dying? I'm going to die. And with desperation, better die, right? That was how the fishermen felt. And they came to Jesus and, how come he is sleeping? How come he's sleeping? They woke him up. And what did he do? As Jesus stands up and Jesus raises his hand. And all he says is this: "Peace, be still." And the seas and the raging storm stood still. And everything was calm again. The skilled fishermen couldn't believe it. His new disciples couldn't believe it. Why and how can their teacher, the one that grew up in Nazareth, be able to even calm the storm? What sort of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? See, they have seen his miracle. They have seen him healing. They have seen him raise the lame, the blind. They have seen a few miracles. But this was the supernatural miracle that they saw for themselves. I don't know about what storms are you going through now. Are you going through any storms? I'm going through some storms. Is there a storm blowing in your mind today or in your life today that you're about to sink, that you can't even handle it anymore? Be it financial, be it physical, be it relationship-wise, be it spiritual. Even if you're doing it for years, you've been a teacher for the years, you've been a manager for years, you've been a pastor for years. But will come a point in time when you are tested, when the storms come raging in. We may not have storms like this today, But we have emotional storms, we have mental storms. They say that over 800 million people have mental illness in this world. It's about 10% of the population. Today, we are swarmed by mental illness. We are swarmed by emotional unrest. We are swarmed, of course, by the COVID-19 issue. Do you need a place to find peace today? If you need a place to find peace today, perhaps this man can bring you peace, because this man can even calm the storm and the winds and the seas. What other person to look for to calm our own storms and give us peace in the midst of the storm? It's not peace out of storm, it's peace in the midst of the storm. So this was basically a miracle to show his team, his church. Now we go to a miracle that's shown to the whole public, to the masses, to the nation. And we're going to talk about the feeding of the hungry. Okay, on to you, Rose.
We're going to tell you a story about Jesus feeding the 5,000. Okay, basically you can find all the verses in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John. Okay, let me tell you a story. Quick one. Great crowds of people followed Jesus to see his miracle and hear him teaching about God's love for them. The people sometimes forget to take food with them. One day, huge crowd of 5,000 men and their families followed Jesus. It was late in the day when they reached Jesus, and the people were getting hungry. The only one with any food was a young boy with 5 small loaves of bread and 2 fish. Jesus blessed the food. His closest follower and helper, which is his disciple, gave it to the people. After everyone had plenty to eat, the disciples gathered up 12 baskets of leftover. This is the miracle. With 5 loaves of bread and also 2 small fish. Learning points that we want to share with you guys is God used the ordinary things, you see, 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 fish, to create extraordinary things. So don't doubt. We or you, I, never too late to serve God. God delights to choose insignificant person and use you for his glory. Instead, this is what written in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 27. Instead, God chose things the world consider foolish in order to shame those who think they are wise. And he chose things that are powerless to shame those who are powerful.
Thank you so much for doing it so well. Now, the feeding of the 5,000 is the only story that is mentioned in all 4 Gospels. The only miracle. All 4 Gospels mentions it. Of course, like what Rose has said, angle a little bit different, but basically the same story. It's about the fact that these people were so engrossed. They went to listen to Jesus until they didn't eat their lunch, and now it was getting late, and they even haven't had their meal yet. How do you feed 5,000 men, not counting women and children? The disciples were in a dilemma. Jesus being Jesus, what did he do? He says, what do you have? They brought a young boy, who his mommy had packed some lunch for him. 5 loaves, 2 fish. What are 5 loaves and 2 fish going to do for 10,000 or even 15,000? But they managed to feed 5,000. And you know something? After they fed 5,000, there were still 12 baskets left over. And you can see these people sprawl all over the green grass. They were put into groups of 15, very well arranged. The disciples handed out food for them, the bread and the fish multiply. How do you multiply that? I don't know. You got to be there. Okay. Jesus took up the basket, prayed and thanked God for it, and everything multiplied. How many of us would really like Jesus to create this miracle for us? How many of us would like Jesus to multiply our money? How many of us would like Jesus to multiply our sales? Those of us in business, in sales, yeah. How many of us would want Jesus even just to multiply our data? Because we're running out of data nowadays. How many of us would like Jesus to multiply our time? We just cannot find time, like myself, cannot find time to do all the things I want to do. And how many of us would like Jesus to multiply our faith? So what do you think we need to do for Jesus to multiply. Last week, I challenged you. I said, if you don't have money, you come today. Correct or not? You don't have money, you come today. Teach you how to multiply your money. How do you do that? If you want your money to be multiplied, you want your time to be multiplied, you want your faith to be multiplied, you want your love to be multiplied, the first thing you need to do is to give it to Jesus. That's what the boy did. And because the boy gave willingly, he was able to bless so many people. Some of us want to save the world, want to do charities, but 5 cents asked to donate also very hard, correct or not? Ask you to spend some time to maybe visit the old folks home. No time, I'm very busy, pastor go, I cannot go. Right. Learn the lesson from the young man. If you want Jesus to multiply your fortune, you need to present your fortune to Jesus. If you want Jesus to multiply your faith, then offer and surrender your faith to him. And that's what this young man did. The rich young ruler came to Jesus. Jesus said, sell everything and follow me. What did he do? He went back and he was feeling so sad. If he had followed Jesus, don't you think Jesus would have multiplied and tripled his wealth? This story itself is for us, for the nation, for the public. This story was basically the disciples. This one is for us, normal people. You may not be a follower of Jesus at this moment. It's okay. Right? Test him out. Right? Test him out and see how he's going to bless you. See how he's going to give you the patience to multiply your patience to take care of children if you're a teacher, right? Your young kids at home, or if you're a parent. Test him. He will multiply your data for you. Test him. He'll multiply your Zoom minutes for you if you offer it to him. Our last story is about Bartimeus or Bartimeus.
I'm from Team Alex, and I'm going to do a narrative of story of the blind man called Bartimeus from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Jesus was near Jericho with his disciples, and a crowd was following him. So sitting by the roadside was a blind beggar named Bartimeus, the son of Timaeus. So when he heard that Jesus was passing by, he began crying out, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. So some people around him began to rebuke him and to tell him to be quiet, but he called out even more. So Jesus stopped and commanded Bartimeus to be brought to him. And Jesus asked him, what do you want me to do for you? Bartimeus answered, Rabbi, that I may see again. So Jesus told him, go, your faith has healed you. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the way. So now the story is finished. I'll hand back to Teacher May to tell us the lesson behind the story.
Thank you very much. You're a very smart disciple. Thank you, Cindy. Very short and sweet. Bartimeus, the blind man. Remember in the mission statement of Jesus, he says what? Recovery for the blind, specifically because there were a lot of blind people at that time. Because it's a very personal story. It's a very personal story. In fact, Matthew, right, or Mark talks about his name, Timaeus, the father. Bartimeus was a blind man and was always sitting by the roadside. Obviously, he was a beggar. Some versions say there's one. Some versions say there's two blind, remember? Okay, I think Matthew says there's two blind men. Mark says there's one blind. Luke says there's one blind. Okay, so some of them are a little bit more focused on Bartimeus. Mark listened a lot to Peter, wrote accordingly to how Peter narrated. And Peter was one of the close eyewitnesses. So probably Peter knows this Bartimeus guy personally. But here was the guy that was sitting by the road blind. And then Jesus and the large crowd, everywhere he went, there was a crowd. And this time it was Jericho. Jericho is a little bit south, I believe. There he hears something and he hears a crowd talking about the son of David, the son of David. And he cries out. He cries out, Son of David, have mercy on us. Have mercy on us. Why son of David? Because in tradition, they believe that Solomon, the son of David, can heal, has a healing power. So they keep calling, Son of David, Son of David. And you know what happened? The crowd scolded them. Has anybody ever scolded you for being vocal about anything? Quiet, quiet. Jesus is not going to attend to you. You are just a blind beggar on the road. look, Jesus is the Messiah, Jesus. And I tell you something, this story came, the story before is John and the brother James fighting for position. One day they got their mother, to go and ask Jesus, when you go to heaven, can my sons, John and James, sit on your left and your right? Meaning they want to be the commanders. And Jesus says, no, right? Whoever wants to be first must be the least. Okay? And after that, this thing happened. So here, this guy shouts, and then the crowd tried to shut him up. But he continued to shout, have mercy on us, son of David. And Jesus stopped and called them. Jesus did a very, very interesting that people do miss out. And that's why I feel this story is so special. Jesus said this, what do you want me to do for you? Imagine that God himself or the Son of God or the great Messiah coming to you today. Coming to Bartimeus, what do you want me to do? Does Jesus already know the answer? Definitely. He's a blind man. Right? But the blind man did not ask Jesus, heal us, heal us. He says, have mercy on us. Show mercy to me. I'm a blind man. Now, it doesn't say in this whole story whether Bartimeus was born blind or not. The other story, yes, the blind man was born. Most likely he wasn't born blind. He became blind because of an illness or something. And now he wants to regain back his sight. He wants to go back to be able to see again. He wants to have hope in life again. Of course, he says, Lord, let our eyes be open. And immediately, the other story, Jesus had to spit on the ground and put the earth and put on the eyes. In this story, Jesus just touched their eyes and immediately they received their sight. They went back and they followed him. They said they followed him. They refused to leave. They followed him all the way to the end. Even though Jesus wasn't the best evangelist, at the end of the day, he only had 120 followers. But all these acts of healing, of miracles, continue to emanate until today. Today, the followers of Jesus Christ, 2.3 billion in the world. Because of all these miracles and these stories, be it corporate, be it team, be it personal, we can see that Jesus has touched many, 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 many lives. And we're not talking about religion today. We're talking about Jesus' mission statement to give sight to the blind, to preach to the poor, to liberate the oppressed, and to liberate the ones that are in captivity. But actually, Jesus didn't save anybody from prison. Even John the Baptist, he couldn't save from prison. What is he talking about? He's talking about our own mindset captivity, perhaps. He's talking about captivity of sin, perhaps. Right? He came so that he can wipe out sin from the world. So we're not talking about religion today like how the Pharisees talking about. We're talking about a man who was so purposeful to fulfill his mission, even to the point of death, that he walked on this earth for 3 years. Lack of sleep, lack of food. He didn't think of sleep, he didn't think of food. All he thought about was, how can I liberate these people from their sins and from their illness and from their situation and give them hope? And did he give hope? Definitely. So all these guys became evangelists for him. Some at the end turned away from him, we don't know, but many of them became his ardent followers. The angel proclaimed his name is Emmanuel. What is the meaning of Emmanuel?
God with us.
God with us. Just now I like one of them that put in the mission. What is the mission of Jesus? He said, to show God to us. Indeed. It's not just to show God to us. He was God himself living on this earth, walking with his people, talking with his people, healing with his people, eating with his people, enjoying with his people. His name is Emmanuel, God with us. The baby that was born in the manger walked on this earth because He wanted to walk with his people. So the question remains today, what do you want Jesus to do for you? What do you want Jesus to do for you in your life? What do you want Jesus to do for you in your family? What do you want Jesus to do for you in your work? What do you want Jesus to do for you in your spiritual life? I leave that for you to answer. Because if Jesus can come to this earth to die for us, he can definitely give you life. He can definitely make your mission impossible possible. Because he said, I am possible.